Kevin Probably Saves the World is about a guy who is at his lowest point in his life. He's had success financially, and he's gotten a lot of stuff, and now he's lost it all. And you know, he never really worked on his infrastructure. So that's how he got his validation, is from all these external things. And now it's all been taken away, and he doesn't really know who he is, and he's sort of in a crisis. And through a number of circumstances, this woman appears, a celestial being, and tells him that it's up to him to save all of mankind. So for a guy who can barely take care of himself, that seems like a big ask. And he's reluctant at first. And he also doesn't know if he's crazy or not, because no one else can see her except for him. I think it's a very unique show, and it has, you know, there's a lot of stuff about the interconnectedness of people and the beauty of life and the world and appreciating what you have around. But it's all kind of captured in this super funny and irreverent kind of tone. And there's a nice balance between sort of serious and funny, and the scripts always keep you guessing, and it just unravels in a very fascinating and fun way. It's great writing. It's going to be a fun journey. He's left a bunch of disappointed people in his wake, and included in those people are his twin sister, Amy, and her daughter, Reese. You know, in his life, he's never really been forced to think about how his actions have affected other people, and this is the first time where he's not just living with his own reasons for doing things. I'm sure he had a great reason for leaving his brother-in-law's funeral early and getting there late. I'm sure he went, well, I have to, there's no choice. But he never thought about what that would have felt like for his sister or his niece. And so he's starting to really understand on a visceral level what his absence has been like for his family members. And I think he starts to be really, I think he's really moved by specifically his twin sister's unconditional love for him, which he always seemed to take for granted. It's hard to describe exactly the feeling that brought me to it. I didn't know anything about it when I started to read it, and then the more I got into it, the more I started to sort of enjoy it, but cautiously. I was sure that at some point the other shoe would drop and I wouldn't like it. And it's very easy to turn me off to a project. It's sort of a problem of mine where I go, I didn't like that one joke. I think, and it taints an entire thing for me. And this one, it just was so beautiful, and they walked this line between comedy and drama so perfectly. And you know, every time I was about to cry, there would be a joke, and I could sort of laugh out that emotion so that I wouldn't embarrass myself in front of the people around. Yeah, it sort of just spoke to me, and it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to describe, but it's been interesting talking to some of the other castmates and some of the other people who have seen it and also have a hard time describing exactly why they like it. It's just sort of unlike anything else, and it has a hopeful, optimistic message, but not one that feels like a after-school special. You know, it's a hard-won optimism. It's light in the face of real darkness. A lot of the shows that I have heard about are, people really responding to have been sort of life-affirming in certain ways, and people desiring that and being moved by people being kind to each other and life being complicated, and I think I think that this show is very strange too. You know, it doesn't take place in the world as we know it. There's a real magical element. There's very surreal visuals and special effects, and you know, Kevin is not always seeing the world as the rest of us see it. You know, sometimes things are much more beautiful, sometimes things are a little darker, and so that's another thing that sets it apart, is visually it's kind of a stunning show, and that's continued in the episodes as we've gone on. I think one of the things that I like the most about Kevin is kind of how selfish and shallow he is. There's something that's sort of refreshingly honest about a person who's like, I don't want to do that. You know, he's initially, you know, very kind of unapologetic about where he is in life and the world, and he's still, you know, you don't just change yourself overnight, and so, you know, it's a bumpy road to his enlightenment, or whatever you want to call it. But I like that he's sort of an open book, and emotions kind of just like pour through him however they are. He's sad one second, he's overwhelmed by the beauty of the world the next, and that's been really fun. It's sort of like, it feels like in any given scene, no matter what I happen to be feeling in that moment, I don't have to tamp it down and be like, well, Kevin wouldn't feel like that. He's feeling everything, so it's really fun.
I've been trying to figure out a way to describe Kevin Probably Saves the World in like a very short, succinct way, but it's kind of hard. I would say that it's a show about forgiveness of your past and forgiveness of others. It's a show about love. It's a show about family, faith, redemption. And so I think like I can only really speak in that kind of theme, you know, in themes, because it's one of those, I always said that if you could capture the feeling of the show, then people, I think, will gravitate to it, because there's just this warmth and about it, you know, a man who's hit rock bottom and coming back to try to reconnect with his family, and all of a sudden he's tasked with saving the world, but he can't tell anybody about it. So he's already kind of got this like little crazy stigma around it, and now he's talking to this invisible angel and having to save people and help people and figure things out. But it's a really great journey. My character, Amy, is Kevin's twin sister, and we have been very close for a very long time, and kind of, he separated himself and went to New York and kind of lost his way and lost the connection with that. But Amy is, you know, she has this unwavering love for her brother and concern for him that it really consumes her. But that's something that I'm learning about Amy now, is that her concern for everybody else, her daughter, her work, her brother, is sort of the way that she goes about not dealing with how much turmoil she's really experiencing in life. The story was really what drew me. I just thought it was so well written. Then I was like, oh, I get to ride on a helicopter and be like a weapons specialist? Like, yeah, that doesn't happen very often for me. But there was just this levity and twinkle to the show that I thought, wow, we're actually talking about something that is real and human, and all of these ideas are very relatable, but they did it in a way that was, you know, was a little bit like supernatural and interesting and exciting, and, you know, there's gonna be some fire here and there and explosions and we're running over cars, and I just thought, what an interesting way to tell us just a very basic human story, and that's, you know, hitting rock bottom and collecting yourself up and reconnecting with your family and all of those things, and just surviving, moving forward, but doing it with a real sense of levity and positivity, and I just think we need more of that right now. Who's gonna love this show? I think that there's something for everyone. This is a show you can watch with your family. This is a show you can watch with your kids, with your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your best friend. You can watch it by yourself and feel like you're not so alone. This is a show that I think will hopefully relate to a lot of people. I mean, that's all we're trying to do, right? Make TV that you know, makes you feel something, and maybe helps you get through a rough moment or gives you hope. You know, it's funny. In this business, word travels fast, but it's so rare that you meet somebody that you're like, you've just only heard incredible things about. And I did have that experience with Jason. He was a huge reason that I wanted to do this show. And he is a genuine dream. He's so grateful and so hardworking, always a smile on his face. And just kind of his presence sort of sets a bar of just humanity and, you know, gratitude.
I would describe Kevin Probably Saves the World as a show about the human struggle to be good and to be hopeful, and to really be aware and observe humanity as it is. That's how I would describe the show. It's watching one man kind of work through and build his own personal stamina and ability to see need. She feels like an angel, but she's not angelic at all. So there's some wonderful things about that. And she's complicated in the sense that the things that people might think of as an angel, and in the piece we're very specific not to say, she says, I am not an angel, that is a human construct. She's challenged. She is not doing things that one would put in the angel category. She's using alternative facts. She's actually gone against the mythical universal idea that if it has to end, if humanity has to end and replenish itself, it just has to end. But she won't allow that. So she has her own kind of repercussions that she has to deal with because she's really bucking the universe in a way. I think audiences will initially want to tune in because Jason and I are really cute together. Just FYI, he's amazing. But also, once the content is there, because we meet Kevin in a place of really brokenness, and I believe people will be intrigued by, first of all, it's kind of light in the dealing with it, but we deal with it. So I think people will be intrigued by, there's not this kind of facade of perfectionism. Like, this is a real person having a real human struggle. And I believe people want to see that. And I believe people want to see and get messages about, maybe I can try that. Maybe there are things in this that I can figure out to be better or work on, or I'm already doing and keep doing it. That's what I think. Oh, working with Jason Ritter. What a complete and utter joy. First of all, he's superb. He is the Kevin. It works because Jason is Kevin. That is just how precise. He's so specific. He's so open. He's so giving. He's so funny. He's so quirky. He's so weird. He's just so human. I truly believe that Jason Ritter might be one of the 36 of which we're speaking about in the show. He's just, you have to see his work. Like, I think this will, I told him, I said, I think this is star making for him. He's so nice. It's so hopeful, and it is providing, I think people like struggle with like universal ideas. So that notion of like having a conversation that is above mortality. That's what I think really sets us apart, but it is so humanly done that anybody of any kind of thought theory will be able to relate to it. I think that's the thing that kind of sets this show apart. It's about how do we help humanity? How do we help ourselves become better human beings? And in doing so, could we change and save the world? Probably.
Kevin Probably Saves the World is, I think it's mainly a show about hope and serving others, and Kevin, played by Jason Ritter, he's a man who had everything, lost everything, and after a really dark and low time in his life, he's given the opportunity to turn it all around, and he moves back to his hometown and connects with so many of his old friends, and he chooses that he's going to become a better person and benefit himself to benefit the world and save humanity. Reese and Kevin, they've had a great history past, but he's been separated from their life because he left, went to New York, started pursuing his career there, and he left Reese and, her mom too, his twin sister, and so it's very distant, and he was late for her dad's funeral, and just a lot of things that just weren't cool. He just wasn't like a cool guy that he didn't, work together as a family, so there's a lot of tension in the beginning of the show. He's the best. Like, honestly, he's one of the coolest and nicest people I know. Like, Jason has just made the show what it is, and I don't think anyone else could do his part. I think it's very unique because it is a comedy. Like, the whole cast is hilarious. Like, oh my gosh, Dustin and India, just everyone, obviously, Jason and Joe, oh my gosh, Kimberly. Okay, literally everyone is so funny, but it deals with real life situations, and it's very relatable. So there's and there's a sci-fi twist, like the media, and it's just a great show, and I really think people are gonna like it. I find family a huge part that I connect to the show with, is just like caring for family, loving family, keeping it close, and family can be messy, and there can be tension, but always coming back to family. And I think having hope is a big, big one. Like, throughout the whole entire season, you'll see that hope is such a big theme.
When we first meet Kevin, he is kind of at the lowest point in his life. He's returning home from New York to Austin. What we find out is that he recently tried to kill himself, and he now is coming home to live with to be with his sister and her daughter. And so at that moment, something kind of magical happens that kind of changes the trajectory of his life.
The funny thing about where the idea came from is that it sort of came out of catastrophe. We had a piece of development that we were developing a pilot, and it blew up, which happens. And so we said, well, let's just write something that we want to watch. And part of the genesis of the idea was, it was sort of November, it was after a long election cycle, it was after a long season of developing, and no matter what side of the political spectrum you're on, I think it's safe to say things got pretty ugly for about a year or more. And all you have to do is look on social media, Twitter, message boards on news sites to find ugliness in the world.
Fake news.
Fake news, whatever. And so we were like, well, it leaves you feeling a little hopeless, I think. It's like, well, nothing will ever change, and nothing I do will ever change. And so we sort of started with the premise that, well, what if one person actually could make a change? And a person who had lost hope could sort of find hope. And part of our pitch on the pilot was, you can't change the world. It is impossible for one person to change the world. But you can change yourself, and then that sort of changes the world.
The main theme of the show is don't be a jerk. It doesn't take that much for someone to do something nice to help somebody else. And in our world, obviously, as Kevin tries to do that, it might not go quite as he had planned. But at the end of the day, he does impact those around him. And he, over the course of the series, will find that he even has a greater impact than he even could imagine. Well, it was kind of funny. we had actually had many casting sessions with the different actors that came in, and we were having a really hard time finding the voice of Kevin. And then we actually did a test deal with Jason. He came in, it was his birthday. And so we had gotten a bunch of cupcakes because we thought it was actually really sweet of him to come from working all day to come test for this
In a
part.
rainstorm.
Yes.
And then come.
And as soon as he did like 3 scenes, and as soon as he did them, we and everybody else in the room knew he was our guy. So it was so funny. It's like we sent him home with cupcakes, and then we marched the rest of them up to the head of the studio's office and basically said, "We found our Kevin."
And here's cupcakes in case. And then when they approved him, we're like, it was the cupcakes, right?
But it was so funny because we got to call him that night and basically say, happy birthday. You're the new lead of our show. And it's been amazing ever since. I hope people want to tune into Kevin Probably Saves the World because they all need a little hope in their lives. You need something that's light and fun and has warmth and at the same time can resonate with them on an emotional level. And that's how we approach the episodes as we kind of write them. And I don't think there's much like that on television right now. I mean, we're not a true procedural and we're not a sitcom either. We have a little bit of everything.
And I would add, I think I love shows that have a little bit of magic in them. And I love doing shows where it's our world, except this one thing is magic. Because I feel like I kind of secretly hope that that's actually the world that we live in. So I hope that and I hope that they tune in because as much as it can be so many different things, it can be emotional and sad and make you cry, but it's at the end of the day, it's funny and it's people that you want to kind of hang out with.